$100,000 in income. There's the speaker. Income starts rolling in. We get 3 payments through the year, and I believe the first payment's in November. So that's why we're not showing any revenue at this point.
Are there any questions among the trustees?
I do have a question. I just want to, still learning, still trying to keep up. And so you're saying the new fiscal year started July 1st, right? Because we're on fiscal years?
That's correct, yes.
All right, perfect. And we don't expect any revenue from July through till November?
Pretty much, yes. So we get payments from the county. I believe they start in November, so we get 3 payments. So we have to use last year's budget to carry us through.
Oh, okay. And that typically there's enough in regards to just the previous year's revenue to pay for the next year's expenses?
That's correct, yes.
And so that typically then those kinds of expenses would be like your overhead, your salaries, and that kind of thing?
Correct, yes, yeah. And in the summer months, of course, too, we're mowing, and so we do have equipment needs during that time frame. So usually this time of year, we're probably spending more money for parts and pieces for equipment as they break and fail during normal activities.
Okay, and then again, so it's last year's revenue that's covering that?
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Right. Any other questions among the trustees? No. Okay. We have 2 consent agenda items in part 2, and if there are no questions,
I would love to pull off number 2.
Okay, we'll pull number 2. And what are your questions?
Can you help me understand really what this, again, this is really new for me, what the flood protection, the encroachment permit, what you're asking us here?
Sure. So anytime an organization would like to touch the project levees, our levees in general, the Central Valley Flood Board requests an endorsement from the maintaining district, so in this case, RD 900. And in this particular item, the city of West Sacramento would like to pave the top of the levees for bike trails, walking trails, et cetera. So that's what this item is for. So it's the city's project. We're just endorsing it, saying we don't have any concerns, issues with this type of project. So they have to then go to the Central Valley Flood Protection Board for all other permits and requirements that the state and or federal government place on the project.
Okay, thank you. So this is when we did the tour with Congresswoman Matsui. Is this along those lines where we went up and we celebrated our levees, the walkability of our levees? That's what this is?
Yes, that's correct. So that whole area would then be paved. Basically, it starts from where the lock area is all the way to the southern city boundary on the Sacramento River. So that's the goal of this project.
Have we heard from community members, yay or nay? I mean, it seemed like a lovely walking trail to me.
I'm not involved with it because it's a city project. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming there's been plenty of community outreach on something like this. And I have not heard any negative on the project, so okay. It seems to be going. The city's doing this in stages. The first stage is north of this area that is going through the approval process, so this is the second phase.
Okay. And normally when we approve something like this, it is, again, we just defer to the entity that's asking regarding community engagement and whether we've talked to anyone or anything along those lines? That's
correct.
Okay.
We have the option to put conditions on it if we wanted to. In this case, it's the city, and so I feel the city's doing the right thing and we don't need to put any extraneous conditions on it. Plus the Central Valley Flood Protection Board, if there's concerns from their standpoint, they will place it, and then it does go through the Army Corps also. So there's lots of eyes that look at these things.
Okay, so we're relying on others' sort of checks and balances.
Yeah, I look at it myself to make sure there's no big issues. We had talked to the city originally about some of these projects because they wanted to put a lot of signage out, which is great. The problem is it interferes with some of our activities, our maintenance activities with tractors and so on. So we've strategically placed some of those items. There was discussions on thickness of asphalt on the roadway. Because we drive on the levee.
Exactly,
It's
yeah.
not a bicycle, it's a pickup, it's a tractor. And the thickness of the asphalt, in my opinion, would have failed relatively quickly. And
So we
now
would
the
have had
city's.
potholes.
Yes, you'd have potholes on the access trails. And so I recommended they beef that up a little bit, and they did. So, yeah, so things like that I catch and recommend to, and they change the plans.
Okay, thank you.
on that. So your comments just now, I think, are really helpful, because I'm just thinking about, I also sit on the WASAFCA board, and all of these different entities with the Army Corps of Engineers and protection and maintenance and all these different pieces of the puzzle to ensure, as we work towards 200-year flood protection. What I'm hearing from you is this isn't just a rubber stamp. This project came to us and we're like, sounds good. It sounds like there's been a lot of conversation in meetings about approving this to ensure that it's not only going to, I trust the work. I'm trusting that the project itself aligns with everything. We're not rubber stamping it either. There's been a lot of conversation about
That's correct,
maintenance.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's, like I said, there's a lot of conversation at the local level, us, and then it goes up to the state and then to the federal level. So it gets scrutinized pretty well.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, who was
Trustee
first?
Alcala, and then Trustee Sulpicio will second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Alcala?
Aye.
Trustee Orozco?
Aye.
Trustee Sapezio Hall?
Aye.
Trustee Early?
Aye.
President Guerrero?
Hi, thank you so much for your very helpful background, Madam Manager. Next is our regular agenda item, Part 3. Item number 4 is consideration of rescinding the board action of July 17th, which awarded construction contract between Reclamation District 900 and the lowest responsible bidder for the Blacker Canal Slope Rehabilitation Project. Mr. General Manager, can you please provide a report?
Sure. So at our July board meeting, we approved contract with the lowest bidder for Blacker Canal. During that board meeting, I received an email, but did not look at it because we were in the board meeting. FEMA, they were given the construction cost, and they backtracked a little bit on it. It changed the benefit cost ratio significantly from what the original estimates that were developed back in 2017 were. And so they informed us that the funding may not be available for this project. So we went from a benefit cost ratio of just better than 1, which is a good project, to somewhere around 0.36 based on the construction costs. So in the meantime, we've had several meetings with FEMA. Cal OES is the one that writes the checks, and so we work with Cal OES also on these programs. And we have not yet come to a decision as to whether or not FEMA will fund this. We're looking at erosion rates to see if we can compute a better benefit, meaning the backyards will fail sooner than what was originally anticipated, looking to see if there's any utility conflicts that could be impacted. So we're still looking at all of this to see if we can bring that benefit cost analysis up to something better than 1. Again, numbers were based on 2017, so we're trying to get FEMA to raise the benefit allowance up. So we're still working with that. We've gone out, or we will go out and resurvey it to look at additional erosion on the canal. The last survey was done in 2017 I've got to think that additional erosion with the storms that we've had over the few years has caused additional erosion. So that adds a benefit to the project because we're stopping erosion sooner than originally anticipated. But until all of that is done, there's no guarantee that that money would be funded. And the reason we pushed this through in July, too, was there was a deadline for the funding. And work pretty much had to be done by June of next year. And without the guarantee of money, there's no guarantee that the time extension would get pushed. So our recommendation has been, let's just rescind this, go back to the drawing board. There's new products out there that will protect the embankment that may be less costly, so that brings the cost down, which then brings the ratio back up. So we're working with FEMA to try to make that all happen. Unfortunately, construction season pretty much ends end of October, and that gives us just over a month to do anything, and there's not enough time at this point.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Any questions among the trustees?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Because I just want to, I appreciate the report. And I do want to, one, make sure I'm following, but two, so this particular area is Jefferson Boulevard and Linden Road. Is that where we're talking about?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Goes from Jefferson to the main canal adjacent to Linden, yes.
Are there homes over there, or?
Yes, both sides of the canal have homes. The north side of the canal, which has experienced more of the erosion, those are some of the homes that are of concern. So I've got a landowner that I speak with every month or so about his concerns. So there are homes real close to this erosion.
And again, I'm gonna keep asking questions.
Sure.
And so this project has basically, it started in 2015. Here we are in 2024. Okay.
So it started in
The design of this project started in 2015.
okay,
I'm just reading the report.
got it.
If it's wrong, you let me know,
you're
sir.
right. Yep.
And so you have folks who have been waiting nearly a decade to get this addressed. So we've known this for a while. Various, it sounds like issues, right? I mean, obviously COVID, a whole host of issues have happened. Then a project would have cost 1.1. FEMA was only going to give us 1.8. Is that where the 1.8 comes in? Or
Correct.
okay. But really, the project actually cost about $5 million.
Yes.
Okay. And so I guess I have some concerns, a few, mostly about the folks who live by there. I mean, again, it's been almost a decade. 2025 will be upon us very, very soon, and it will be a decade. Do we have some major concerns about the homes that are near here?
There's still plenty of fill between the canal and the homes. We can't drive a vehicle down it.
Okay.
We can walk. And we've talked about if necessary, we could place a large rock riprap to protect the home if serious erosion were to occur, between now and the time we truly do repair it permanently. So there's ways to stop it. It would be temporary, and then we'd have to remove it to do the final project. But if it were to fail more significantly, we could go in and take care of it.
I guess I'm just wondering, liability-wise. And so you're saying if it were to fail, then we could go in and fix it. If it were to fail, wouldn't potentially some homes be impacted before we could even go in? Or no, that's not a concern?
I don't think the homes would be
Oh, okay.
impacted. I think we could potentially lose a fence.
Okay.
So we've probably got 6+ feet of room from the canal to the fence line. But yeah, the homes would not go into the canal.
So then when you're talking to the neighbor about their concerns, what if if there isn't a concern about their home being impacted, what is their concern?
Just losing their backyard, landscaping and that sort of thing.
And
So-
could that happen if it were to fail?
There's always that possibility if we got real heavy rains for a long period of time. There's always that chance. We worked with a geotech to try to get a rough rate of erosion.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in these conditions, there really isn't a good gauge on the rate of erosion for this type of canal and material. It's a clayey material, and so the clayey material has a tendency just to slough off instead of erode in, at some rate. So it's one of those we'd just really have to keep an eye on through the wintertime, and if we see large chunks of material failing, then we would go in and do a temporary repair.
Or if we get, what you're saying is, if we get large amounts of rain, then potentially this particular landowner's backyard might be ruined.
Yes, possibly.
What's our priority level? I'm just curious, as if we retract this, and it sounds like we have to, right? Doesn't it actually sound like we have choices here? Where would it fall? Because again, it's been 10 years.
I would say it's probably getting up there and into a high priority. There was a couple of, we talked about it internally, this project started many years ago, so I don't know.
2015.
I don't know what the priority level it was at that point.
Well, I mean, to be fair, right, in 2015, they were just addressing it. Who knows how long it had been
Yeah,
at that point?
And I don't know what the erosion was like back then, and so, but there's a couple of things. It's definitely nice to have access by vehicle to get through there. That was the original plan. That's how it was before it started to erode. And so we can no longer do that. So everything that we take in there is by hand, and we can't get a tractor back there or anything like that. So it's, from our standpoint, it becomes a little harder to maintain than normal. So that's a priority, so we can maintain it easier. But also, I think because there's homeowners adjacent, that becomes another high priority also. So I think this is one of our higher priority projects to take care of.
So then so if it becomes a high priority project, because at this point, right, it sounds like maybe it hasn't necessarily been, what does that look like? Because we're going to retract this contract this evening. And again, I just have some serious concerns for this poor resident who's been living with this for probably either the entirety that they've had this home or at least a decade, right?
Sure.
And so I'm just curious, how do we make sure that it does get addressed, that it actually is high on the
Sure.
list?
Well,
I just want to, Mr. General Manager, I don't think it wasn't a high priority and that we
Great.
did receive FEMA money for it. I just think it took a while to get some permits approved, to get us to that point.
10 years is a long time.
And that process is a long time, but there was quite a few steps that were taken.
Well, it looks like there was staff turnover. That wasn't necessarily a process problem. That was an us problem. COVID, most likely people going home, that was an everyone problem, right? And then the regulatory permitting,
Permitting was
and
like-
a variety of reasons. So I get that, but again, whether it was a high priority or not, here we are a decade later, right? And you have a resident that potentially is going to be impacted if we have a lot of rain.
Yeah, there was flooding throughout the city with the
Okay, so
last
then,
big rainfall.
so then Martha, that's even more of a concern, right? Because there is the potential
there's
that we could
flooding.
have more flooding.
That's a
Yes.
condition of West
And-
Sacramento. Is the
Yeah,
biggest-
but in this case, this might actually be our fault. So just last question, so how do we support you in this having a priority and then getting addressed?
Sure. So my game plan would be
Yes.
to redesign the project. There's newer earth stabilization than when this project started in 2015. And the thought is the cost would come down significantly. Even if we lose the FEMA grant, what I want to do is be able to make up the money that we would not get in savings by a new design and go about it that way. So we've got the permits now in hand. Fish and Wildlife
Huge
was
step forward.
the long
That was-
reach.
I remember that.
We still need to buy mitigation credits from a bank. And our consultants have recommended, let's go ahead and buy those because they are available now. They do sell out. The state does not have their own land for us to purchase from. So this is a ranch. I'm not even sure where this credit is coming from, but it's accepted by the state. And so we're set to go, other than the funding issue with FEMA and their time frame. And so again, my plan is to redesign this to at least show some significant savings. Hopefully FEMA then will buy off on the changes, our benefit ratio comes up, and the funding moves forward. There's been talk that this grant program, it's just not us, it's other agencies, need an additional time extension. So FEMA is talking about allowing for another 2-year extension, which would work perfect for us if we can get that. So part of the reason our costs came in so high, we were trying to get this done basically by this year. And so the contractors really had to, double their workforces, and that drove the cost way up. And so by us pushing it to next year, costs should come down at the risk of additional erosion. So, and again, if that starts to occur, we can go in and temporarily fix it throughout the wintertime.
Is anything else going to come before us in order to help you move that plan along, or you've got it, once we do this, you don't need anything else from us?
No, we're good. So basically the next step would be to let the board know that FEMA has either approved extension money, and then we would come out with a new set of plans and send that out to bid, and then come back to the board with a new construction contract.
Okay, so there would be another step, there'd be another
Yes,
contract?
yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, we will have to put this out to bid
Question
again.
as well. Trustee O'Connell?
Thank you. Well, Blake, I wanted to ask you, so it's just one homeowner, or are there other homes in the area?
There's a row of half a dozen, 10 homes in this area. One of the landowners has been voicing his concern about erosion. The other homeowners, because it's a heavily wooded area, trees and shrubs, they were more concerned that that's their wildlife area, and during construction, we've got to cut down trees and remove the vegetation to build this product. And so that was more their concern, that they won't see the ducks and birds around the area during construction. But the one landowner was more concerned about the erosion.
Just out of curiosity, so been a bit in duration, but have they suffered any type of losses on their property?
I
or
don't
anything like
believe
that?
they have. Yeah, there's been no claims or anything. So, and prior to me, this whole project's gone through the CEQA requirements, and everything's been addressed. So we're in good shape from a permitting standpoint. It's just now beating the erosion, before it does have serious impacts.
In areas such as that, I know you can't force people to get flood insurance. Is that though something that's recommended? I mean, something that can, I'm not sure.
I think in general in West Sac, everybody should probably have a flood insurance, but
They've been recommending that.
yeah.
Right.
But I don't think you can require it
No.
because
No, it's not a requirement.
you're not in the floodplain.
Right.
Yeah, that's something that that would be nice to put out there.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and West Safeco may have a lot of that information on the city's website too, so.
It'd be good to know, trustee.
Yes, please. So I realize this item is just rescinding the board action. I guess I'm very concerned about these homes. And loss of a fence, I think, would be very traumatizing for a homeowner. And I guess my concern is, you mentioned the rate of erosion, and it's very difficult for a geotech to figure that out. What insurances do we have? And because I'm not hearing any, that this is not going to be a problem. Because I can imagine being a homeowner here and this project that's been in the works for a very long time for a variety of reasons. And then the rate of that starts eroding, and it comes back that this is something we've been working on for 10 years and we couldn't get it done. And now we're losing land and their fence is starting to turn. I would feel very uncomfortable, not only as the elected official here, but a homeowner, knowing that there was an issue in the area that we have not done, or we could be doing our due diligence to ensure property is protected. So I'm not hearing anything certain that we're going to be okay. I'm not an expert in this, and so if you can, make me feel better about this.
Sure. Well, I think the first thing we'll do is we'll survey the ground again, and so I'll have a difference of erosion from the 2015. The last time they surveyed it was when they started the design, which was 2015-16 timeframe that the first survey took place. I'll have them resurvey it. They should be out there this week or next week. So I'll be able to see if there has been significant erosion occur over the last decade. And then we can compare, we've lost 2 feet, we've lost 2 inches. I don't know the answer to that, not being around at the time. And so that will tell us how much material we have lost. The other assurances for us is having our staff out there looking at it to see if material is consistently sloughing off, and if that's the case, then we can get back out there and place, like I said, riprap to prevent the sloughing, stop the sloughing from occurring. Again, that would be a temporary fix based on our permits, but we can stop it.
Okay, so hearing that there will be people out there within the next week looking at this space is fantastic. I appreciate that information. Can we get an update on this at our next meeting?
Yes, definitely.
That would be really helpful. And the consultants you're working with and staff, do we have capacity to make this a priority, or do we need to call in troops to?
No, this is a priority. We've got the staffing to keep an eye on it.
Okay, great.
If we had to do an emergency fix, I would call in a contractor to place the riprap, but we've got the staff to go out, look at it. And so right now the canal is dry. We tried to pump it down to start the project, and by doing that, it is now dry, and there is no water in the canal. But again, once it rains, it'll come back quick.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, then I had just one last question. I just wanted to make sure I gave space for everyone. So then that 1.1, is it 1.1 that we potentially would be losing if FEMA didn't like our solution, or is it 1.8?
Well, so we've spent roughly $300,000 of the money, which they would not require us to reimburse. So they just would not fund any more of the project. So it would be roughly 1.5 million-ish. I don't have all the numbers in front of me right now, but we've roughly spent about, like I said, 300,000 of the budget. Probably even a little more than that, because the way FEMA categorized money and moves it around, we just wouldn't get the remaining money at this point. So we wouldn't have to write them a check for our engineers' time or consultants' time.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to summarize a little bit of what you said, Mr. General Manager, making sure I captured everything correctly from the beginning. This project, which originated in 2017 before we became the Reclamation District trustees. And thereafter, we inherited this project. That transition happened, and there was a new trustee board overseeing this project. We did receive regular updates about the permitting process, noting that there were significant delays. And I recall during those meetings that you were actively pursuing getting those permits cleared. You were doing surveying, and you were continuously maintaining that ongoing engagement and outreach with the residents. And I recall during that time when we did the outreach and we had the residents present us with background information about their concerns over the habitat and just the environmental changes that, this would have. Moving forward, and I know, you prioritizing this and trying to get this, accomplished once you received, the Fish and Wildlife, permit, I think you expedited this in front of us because of the, of the timeline before the financing that we received from FEMA would be, we would lose that money. So I applaud you for taking that. And I know you were handed a lot of stuff and you had to sort through and get an understanding on the lay of that land. And with that, unfortunately, once they received, I think, once you prepare a report, share it with us and they review it, the denial. Now, I appreciate you taking the time to review, from 2015 where we're at now to increase the gross benefits, so that it goes up higher than 0.36, and that would include taking into consideration other material that, I think you were handed with information on what kind of material that you had to work with. When that process goes through in a grant, I don't, my impression is you can't make changes. So you have to move forward with what you had and get that moving along, and I think you were doing it as expeditiously as possible. And in addition to that, now we have a second chance to figure out how to reduce the cost, but also do the surveying of the analysis as to what the changes are since 2015, what other additional erosion. So I think this could be a blessing in disguise, in that you're going to go in after, which is 9 years later, to really assess what is needed. Sometimes we get a reset. And this could be a blessing in disguise with that reset, because we've had, with climate change, significant rainfall. You see our roads decompensating and potholes. We all get notifications about that. But I gotta believe that that has had an impact. And with that, I think that's the, second chance opportunity we have. And I appreciate you, Blake, Mr. General Manager, you do have the expertise with the additional staff to go in and do the job, and also, provide the report back to us. And just let us know, what financing is needed to make sure that we fulfill our obligation and getting this achieved, because I know sometimes it'll take additional cost, to get that done. So I just appreciate you providing, this delivering this news. I know it was probably upsetting to receive that, but also taking a look at the fact that we were trying to fix something based on 2015 information, and patching this all together and trying to get it through. I think we're going to be able to have a deeper dive on what needs to get done and improve on it today. So with that.
On that, I think it'll be fascinating to see the design cost coming back in the new design cost.
Sure, yeah.
and
We've
what that
met
looks
with
like. I think that'll be
some of the
fascinating to see.
manufacturers, and some of their newer products are quite impressive, and I think the price will come down, so.
It'll be awesome.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think your expertise on taking a look at other materials is going to be very helpful here, so thank you. So with that, I'll accept a motion to approve consideration of rescinding.
I'll move.
Second.
Trustee Pizio moved, and Trustee Alcala seconded. Mr. General Manager, please call the roll.
Trustee Alcala?
Aye.
Trustee Orozco?
Aye.
Trustee Hull?
Aye.
Trustee Early?
Aye.
President Guerrero?
Aye. Right, that item is approved. Next is consideration of awarding a construction contract between Reclamation District 900 and the lowest responsible bidder for the Levee Patrol Road Rehabilitation Project issued for bid August 1st, 2024. Mr. General Manager?
All right. This one has money. This is, we signed up with a partnership agreement with DWR last year, towards the end of last year, and that was for a maximum amount of $300,000 to repair our patrol roads in various areas around the district. And so our consultant went around, looked at some of the areas, and found a couple of stretches that could use more aggregate base rock for access road purposes. So we went out to bid. We received two bids for the project. Low was 330,000, high was 517,000, and engineer's estimate was roughly 306,000. There's a cost, a match of 10% on the project, so the maximum the state would pay would be 295,000 of the total amount. So I did some rough numbers with the contingency, construction management. The district would be roughly $100,000 as part of the match of this project. So the road, the old 537 levee around the Highway Patrol Academy is one of the areas that needs some additional rock. And then our access road on the Southport levee, the new levee along the berm, was not rocked heavily during the construction process. So we recommended that rock be placed out there for our vehicles to drive along. So those are the two main projects for this grant. And in fact, the state called me today asking how this project was moving forward, because we do have to have it completed by the end of this year. So.
Okay. Good to know. Questions among the trustees?
Yeah, but I can wait because you got one
Yeah,
over
when you
there.
say completed, like construction completed by the end of the year?
Yes.
Can we do that?
Yes, these type of road projects are real quick and easy, so and that's part of the contract, is the contractor shall be complete by December 31st.
Trustee Early?
So I'm just curious, so we received 2 total contracts or 2 total bids?
2 bids, correct, yes.
Is that normal?
In this day and age, yes. The dollar amount was pretty low, and so some of the bigger contractors aren't interested in these smaller jobs. And because we're sort of in the middle to end of construction season, everybody's pretty busy, tied up. And so, yeah, we just got the 2 bids. We put it out, let our list of contractors know that this project was coming, and unfortunately, only 2 showed up to bid on it.
Were we, I mean, obviously we were hoping for more. What's your normal?
Well, let's see, I think with Blacker Canal, for example, that we received 3 or 4 bids on that project. So you'd like to see 5 contractors bid on these if possible. But there's always the sweet part dollar-wise, and this is sort of on the low end of contractors' work. So, yeah, so I'm glad we got 2.
Are either of these companies local?
I think they're both Sacramento.
Could any company local do this work?
Yes, and one of the companies is on my list to call, and I sent them the information, and they did not bid on it.
Okay. Did we actually just call them up and ask, or do we send an email and then we hope for the best?
Yeah, that's typically what I do, is send them an email with the contract, the construction documents in it, so they don't have to go look for it on a building exchange. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And with that, I'll accept a motion to approve agenda item 5.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Alcala moved, and Trustee Bernes Pizio-Hall seconded. Mr. General Manager, please call the roll.
Trustee Alcala?
Aye.
Trustee Orozco?
Aye.
Trustee Hull?
Aye.
Trustee Early?
Aye.
President Guerrero?
Aye. All right, this item is approved. Next is General Manager updates.
While I get to that page. All right, over the last, I guess, month and a half, almost 2 months, we've been working on policies and procedures, and the big one is the financial policies and procedures. So we've got that draft form, so we're running it by our accountant and all of that. So we're not quite ready to bring that to the board, but we're working on it, along with the other policies in here, just to kind of try to keep current. Last year, we talked about approved a budget for some new vehicles. They finally arrived. We received our new tractor and F-250 pickup, so everybody's thrilled about that. Our end of fiscal year, we're still closing out the books on that, so that's part of my lack of financials this go-round. They just haven't closed out yet, so that'll be happening soon. I think the big story, Aaron, if you want to throw up the quick video of the duckweed. So we've still gotten more phone calls on the duckweed in the pond, and we purchased a skimmer net and immediately broke it. So it was just not strong enough for the amount of duckweed in this particular pond. So one of the guys actually found a video of this contraption, and they duplicated it and built it in-house, and we actually just started testing it this morning. Sorry, the pump.
I apologize.
So you can kind of see, well, you can back up real quick. It's a real quick video. So there it is, and you can see it pulling the green over. It's a pump, and then it pumps it into our trailer, the duckweed, and that's the water left over from the pumping. So it's sorry the video's quick, but we wanted to show you. We're trying to do it, and it's working. There's the trailer filled with duckweed.
Incredible.
So it's going to take a little bit of time. There's conveyor belt ways to do it that we don't have, so this was the best way, and we'll continue until we remove the duckweed out of this pond. So we were impressed that the contraption worked.
So that video, where was it from?
It's the pond on the south side of Lake Washington Boulevard, just east of Jefferson. So it's a stormwater pond, so it just collects runoff, and there's nothing. It wasn't designed to be a part of the community, I'll call it. It was just a stormwater pond. And unfortunately, it's become more part of the community. People walk around it. It's almost a park-like setting now. And when the lake turned green, there was big concerns about it. And it's duckweed, which ducks actually bring this weed in, and it propagates. And so here we are today. You can't see the water. It's all green. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not an algae. Birds eat it. If there were fish in this pond, the fish would eat it. But there was some complaints about it. It doesn't really smell. It was just a sightly issue. And so we tried a couple of different measures. Like I said, we purchased a skimming net, and I think within a day or two we broke that. There was so much out there. This pretty good size pond. There's no aeration in this pond. Like I said, it wasn't part of a subdivision, for a nice amenity. It's purely stormwater, and so we can't control it that way. We looked at chemical treatment. Chemicals are quite expensive to treat this. There's a pond on the north side, and we'd have to treat both ponds because they're hydraulically connected. We can't close off one pond and separate it. You can do it, but it wasn't set up to do it that way. So we're trying this method, and we'll see how it turns out. It's working, so that's the
Great job.
the good news.
How long have we been at it?
We just started this method today, so they just finished the contraption, and we had to rent a pump to do this. The next little hiccup is it drains out of the back of the trailer that we're collecting the duckweed, and so we've got to stop the duckweed from falling out of the trailer. So that's our next challenge. So at least the mechanism works. So that
Yes,
was the
it
big try.
does.
So
And how long
it's-
do we expect to be out there?
it'll probably take a good week of this nonstop. It's a big pond, so
Are we renting the equipment in the meantime?
we're renting the pump at this point. So, which the pumps aren't very expensive to rent. So
Any other areas where this is a problem?
no, it's just this one particular pond. You'll get a little bit of it here on the edges of some of the canals, but this one really propagated this year, really took off.
So you mentioned that the ducks eat this duckweed, but if there were fish in there, which they're not, what impact would that have had, hypothetically?
There really isn't any. It's just a sightly impact. So.
No, I meant, would fish eat this too and help us with the problem?
Yeah. But I think because this is a stormwater pond, it's dirty water, and so the fish may not survive if we wanted to put fish in it.
Like a natural way to treat it.
Yeah. So it is. Most of the water that's in it now is groundwater, so it's percolating up through. And of course, when the rains come, it'll flush it out and so on. But there is no fresh water coming into this other than the groundwater, and so it's unfortunately it's a stormwater pond, so made for stormwater collection, and that's it. So the birds and animals bring the rest to us.
Well, duckweed proliferates pretty
Yes.
profusely. right?
Yes.
Is that the problem with a lot of other areas, right? It just clogs the drainage?
It can, yes, yeah, and because this is stagnant, it doesn't move.
Right.
That just adds to the problem. So in our canals where we have moving water, or we can turn a pump on and move the water, it doesn't propagate as bad as a stagnant area.
Because I've been on a few ride-alongs with RD prior to your employ with as our executive. And I remember that and beavers being a big nuisance when
Yes.
we're trying to remove debris. I mean, it's like the biggest headache, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Yep, we're always on the lookout. So the beavers haven't been a problem lately. Now we have the ducks that are our problem.
Thank you. So I'm here for this duckweed conversation. I drive by this
Why?
every day. And I actually received my first concern from a neighbor. And so I appreciate you keeping us updated on this and the education behind it, and even sending me the Audubon Society signs, because I was able to share, nothing to worry about, this is our plan. But I drove by today and I saw the RD 900 trucks, and I was like, we're skimming the pond. So I actually flipped a
excitement here.
Yui on the middle of Lake Washington.
Take a picture.
And I parked and I got out of the car, and they couldn't hear me because of the pump, but I was like, hi guys, it's okay. But I took a couple pictures, and so I think it's incredible they were able to build that system.
Yeah.
To make it work. And so it'll be interesting to see in a week from now. One question that I did get that I could not answer is, why is one pond have duckweed and the other one doesn't?
That's very interesting, and we don't know the reason for that because they are hydraulically connected, and we haven't run the pumps at the other pond since March, April timeframe. So why it hasn't gone through? It could be the pipe that goes under Lake Washington is so deep that the weed just can't get through the pipe and into that pond, the north pond. And why ducks haven't dropped the duckweed in there, I don't know the answer to that, but yeah, that was my big concern is, this is the small pond. The pond on the north side is quite a bit larger, and this would be a bigger issue.
Well,
But it hasn't taken on yet, so we'll keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't happen.
Well, I appreciate the work everyone is doing to beautify that area, because you're right, it has become an amenity.
Sure.
And people are walking around it. There's people fishing on both of them almost every day. My husband got a fishing license to actually catch a fish there once with a friend. And so it's really become an amenity.
And there
figure.
probably are fish in there,
There
though
absolutely are. There
there shouldn't
absolutely
be, but birds drop fish, people drop fish, so there's probably some fish in that little pond.
Also, if I may add something, there actually was a tiny bit, when this whole duckweed scenario started back in June, maybe, there actually was a tinge of duckweed in the other pond, but it was just very, very thin and around the outside, and it's already cleared up. So, because it goes away on its own.
Yeah, it'll die off here, in the wintertime, late fall, so it'll start dying off itself. We unfortunately got a little bit of a late start trying to figure out how to take care of it without using chemicals and or hiring a contractor to really operate this. So,
Now we're all duckweed experts.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, though, the lack of interest in putting chemicals in the middle of a community.
Absolutely.
Quite
Sure,
frankly,
yeah.
you know, I know that we all probably appreciate that as mothers. And concerned for, of course, the
Animals.
the atmosphere, you know, for our other residents that aren't human. I'm just wondering, when storms are coming, is there ever, if this is a sedentary basin or pond, are we in any at all concerned when the next storm season comes around for any overflow, or have we always been okay?
This one's in great shape. It is connected to this pond on the north side, so there's a pipe that goes underneath Lake Washington, and that pond on the north side has our pump station, which then pumps it into the main canal and out. There's also an auxiliary spillway that runs along the Clarksburg Trail, and so it would, if it were to get overfilled, it would spill out and head south along the Clarksburg Trail and tie into a ditch that would then take it to the main canal. So there's two ways for that water to get out. So we've never seen. I asked that question too. Has anybody ever seen flooding issues at this? And there's never been a problem at these two ponds.
Thank you.
Let's see. The two slip outs from the January 23 storm, the DWR and the Army Corps are still working at it. These are under the PL 8499 program. They ran into a little hiccup on our sites. PG&E needs to relocate a couple of utility poles, and they're behind schedule. So we may not see this slip out repaired this year. If not this year, it will be repaired next year. We've got plastic on one of the slip outs, and if necessary, we could put plastic on the other side. Fortunately, out there, this is the Deepwater Ship Channel. The embankment's 250 feet wide, so there's not a risk of flooding. It just I think when we put the plastic down, people saw it and were wondering what the problems were, and so we did not put plastic on the other side just to not cause concern. And again, it's wide enough that it's not a risk at this point. So, but it will be repaired whether they get to it this year or sometime next year. The Army Corps already has contracts out, has their contractor ready to go. Our project was one of the first to go, to be constructed. Unfortunately, PG&E got in the way.
And if there's anything I could do to contribute in getting PG&E to move along, happy to help.
Great, thank you. Let's see, still working with FEMA on all the funding sources from the disaster, so they're still in the process of approving everything, so I'll just keep the board apprised as we move forward. Our state inspection is going to occur October 3rd. We just set that date, so we'll run around the levees on October 3rd and make sure they're up to DWR's requirements. And with that, that's end of my
I have a
report.
couple, oh, you have a question? I have two, too. Go ahead.
I'll just mention the October 17th with Safeco board meeting is, I believe staff is recommending canceling that.
Okay, yes, I think there was an October dilemma, so I wasn't sure about that one.
I have a question as well. I didn't want to stop you because you were on a roll, Blake. But your policies and procedures and the work that you're doing there, one, I want to commend you because those things aren't easy. But also, I was just curious about what, in general, is the timing on this? Or is it your staff that are actually writing these policies and procedures? Or no, I mean, because that's
Sure.
and so I'm really curious about this. I got a couple of questions on this one.
Aaron's been working on those, and when we come to a draft,
That part.
we work with our attorney to make sure we've covered all of our bases. So he sends back comments, and so that's been the process.
I mean, like I said, really commend you. So your general timeline, are you hoping to get all of these done just by the end of this calendar year or the fiscal year? Because this is actually quite a bit of policies. And then just my other part, did we not have any, I will say it sounded like, but I don't want to impose that on you. It sounded like we actually didn't have a lot of structure when y'all arrived. And so are you starting from scratch on these?
I'll jump in there. So the district had some very old policies in place, typewriter typed out policies.
I love a good typewriter.
So we're updating a lot of that because they're out of date. So we're cleaning those up. And as you can see, some of the technology, the AI information, and some of these may not be, they're not always required, but the heat and illness prevention plan is a requirement. As you're well aware, our financial policies and procedures, that's been in our audit for the last several years, so we need to get that done before our next audit, just to show that we at least have a draft or something in place. So we're trying to pick them off as required by law and or comments by outside consultants.
Okay, just a couple more questions. In regards to, because I just left an AI, a whole 4 hours of talking about AI and what it means to the future, and actually the business community as well. And so I'm just curious, when you are saying that you're writing an AI policy, I mean, could you give me just a tiny bit of a flavor of, like, what does that even mean for RD 900?
Well,
I'll let Aaron answer that.
Thank you, sir. With AI is everything from what we know as Siri and ChatGPT, but as well as even QuickBooks Online. Anything that can potentially help you make a decision that assists you in any way. So the policy covers every facet of AI that we work with as a company. So our HR and payroll program that we put into place, Paylocity, as well as QuickBooks, and people using ChatGPT. We have an app for the guys out in the field to take pictures and report back what they do to show what they've done all day. We use location devices for Paylocity for them to clock in and clock out to verify that they're where they're supposed to be, things of that nature. So it just covers
The do's and the don'ts.
the do's and the don'ts.
Okay, so that's helpful. So we're already incorporating AI into the work that we, and probably have been for a really long time.
Right.
More so in the last year or so.
Well, right, work smarter, not
Yes,
harder,
yes.
right?
yes.
And just the last question I had was actually in regards to your IT contractor. How long has that been posted or out?
It's been out for about a month now.
Almost a month.
So
yes.
it's an RFP for an IT contractor to help with a plan for our IT system. Right now we're not connected together. There's no server system to share documents, so we either have to email them or we use SharePoint, which is a little cumbersome to get documents back and forth. And so we put out a RFP to bring in a professional to help us with organization of our IT systems. So
Will they also be reviewing just your IT security? Because
that's
several
a
things that you
huge
just
thing.
flagged
Yes.
are red flags for me.
Yes, no, that's something huge that we will have them work on.
Okay, so that's built into this
Yes.
contract as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you so much.
Right. That conclude your general manager report?
Yes.
All right, so we'll go to any trustee comments? All right. Accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Trustee Alcala moved and trustee Early seconded. Mr. General Manager, please call the roll.
Trustee Alcala?
Aye.
Trustee Orozco?
Aye.
Trustee Sulpicio Hall?
Aye.
Trustee Early?
Aye.
President Guerrero?
Aye, we are now adjourned.